Okay. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so it's made in choice script, and um, yeah, I guess I can go into some details of like the technical side of these because this group is interested in that. That yeah, like one of my inspirations in this was Kevin Gould's Choice of Magics, which was a really um, I guess what you would call, Chris, a subjunctive game. I guess it has a like wide possibility space in terms of all of the possible outcomes and the ways that the story can go. And so I wanted to do that same sort of thing in my game. And yeah, like I think I mentioned on the your forums that I implemented the main characters, at least, as all having um, different opinions of the player and moods, which basically change faster than opinions, but also they tend to relax towards zero, just like in Storytron. And usually, for making decisions of these characters, I would base it off of both their opinion and the mood. That was usually how I implemented the kinds of the scripting languages or the scripts for those decisions. And I guess in terms of like a high level structure, like choice of games, they want you to structure it in terms of chapters. And generally, you just have each chapter play through in sequence. And as you go through each chapter, you have a series of choices. And generally, the choices early on set the players or characters' main statistics, like their basic stats. And then the choices after the first chapter or two generally based on testing those main statistics and using the results of those tests to add to various secondary statistics that are tracked by the game. I guess then that is things like it's like the level of wealth that you have, or in this game, yeah, it's things like acclaim and infamy. I guess how popular you are with the military or the various political factions. And also because your character in this story is kind of like magical, I guess it summons demons. It also tracks how much the population is aware of your demons and how much they like or dislike your powers. Um, and then around the end phase of the game, most of the choices are based on testing those secondary statistics, I guess, and those final choices basically set up the final ending and determines whether you're able to succeed or fail in your final goals, basically. Yes. And another thing that I mentioned was I used some salience sorts of calculations, like especially in chapters 4 and 5, and some in chapter 7, where exactly the order of events that happen, and also even whether many events happen at all or not, is determined based on your stats or other events that have happened. And so that people who are interested in magic or politics will get events related to that and not so much events related to other things like military if they're not in the military. And so I did that, and it's not just whether things are available, but also the order they come in. So it picks the most salient events every time that it chooses one of those events from the list. So it picks whatever it thinks will be most interesting to the player in those chapters. Yeah, there's 8 chapters total. I guess Sasha just asked. The first one is where you build your character basically, and chapter 7 is technically behind the scenes. It's divided into 3 separate chapters. There's the one main one that has most of the content, and there's a chapter 7b, which is only the military path if you're in the military at that point, and 7c is used for specifically going to track down big bad demons at the very end, because they're the most powerful ones to help you accomplish certain things. But both 7b and 7c are optional, so that's why I broke them off like that. Yeah, I guess, do any of you have questions?
So what was this structure again, Chris? Was it like branching? Like how did you do
Yeah,
that, like branching with like a termination, or you're pointing them all back further along the story, or
yeah, I mean,
you get
like
what I'm saying though.
right, yeah, like at the high level, every chapter runs through in sequence, which is the choice of games model. But exactly what happens within each chapter mostly depends on the player's choices. Like there's branching based on the player's choices, except in 4 and 5 in particular, it mainly draws the events based on salience. Like it picks which events it thinks the player would be most interested in. And then in chapter 7 in particular, it's not really salience, but it's more, well, both 7 and 8, exactly which events happen depends on what's come before. Like it's sort of salience, but it basically runs through the whole list, and it just gives you all of the events which match what's happened. And it
Were there
does that.
any limitations?
Sorry?
Were there any limitations as a result of it being a choice of games engine work that you thought you really wish weren't there? Like, is there any aspect of the engine where you would prefer an engine overcome that limitation in the future?
I guess, yeah, the number of, I mean, it's like choice script is a Turing complete language, and so basically anything you can think of you can implement in choice script, but it definitely would be more efficient to work in a language and system which was dedicated specifically to writing IS. Like making the salience engine in 4, which I reused in 5, took a while for me to get up and running and tested and everything. But once I had that implemented, then it ran fine. And another thing that I did was I used arrays, like choice script. It actually has arrays. It's kind of almost more like a the key, I don't remember what it's called in other programming languages, but it's almost like an associative array. Like you can index with numbers, or you can index into array using strings. So
Dictionary or hash map.
yeah, hash map, yep. So you can, I used it mainly to implement like variable sexes for the various characters, especially the main character, because you can choose that. And that let me write things sometimes in a modular way that you could plug in the characters like the name and sex and have it match the parts of speech and just do basically like Tinker Toy text like from Storytron. I guess, and Chris, you asked how many nodes there are. I guess that is the number of choices.
If there are choices, then it's a branching network. So each, I mean, they're nodes in a network.
Mhm.
Each node represents one local state. You're here. Do you want to go west or east? Here is a node.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm going through and counting. Let's see. 1, 2, 3.
On a similar question to Chris, how much is like exposed to the player per playthrough? Like, are they seeing 2% of what you wrote, 20% of what you wrote?
Yeah, I guess I think the total number of choices that I counted is around 700 to 800. But some of those are reused also. They're like hubs where you come back and answer. You can go one way and then it brings you back and you can answer a different way. You can go and do a different goal. But in terms of, so what was that again, George?
Like first time player that does
Oh,
like
yeah,
a
how
blind
much?
playthrough one time, what
Yeah.
percent of like either your text or your nodes, however you think about it, do they see?
All right, it's definitely, they see a higher percentage of the text in the early chapters. And then the later chapters, it becomes more and more reactive and responsive to the world state and the character that's been played up to that point. But yeah, I'd say probably in any given playthrough, somebody sees something like 25 or 30% of the text. And so you probably want to play at least 3 times through fairly different paths just to see most of the text and most of the events. And even there, like that would at least let you see most of the choices, because a lot of the choices have multiple outcomes, like succeed and fail, or even more than 2 outcomes, depending on various stats and other past events. So in terms of the total text, it might even be lower than that, but probably about 25% of the choices you can see in any given playthrough.
You said you modeled moods for the different characters. Did
Yeah.
you model desires or goals for the characters as well?
No, I pretty much just handled that through like hard coding and just pure writing. But it was, I mean, basically because this is not a sort of generic procedural engine like Storytron, it didn't really make sense to model everybody using interchangeable sequences of algorithms, basically. So that was kind of hard coded, and everybody basically has different variables for their opinions and different variables for their moods, because it just like, even though like behind the scenes they're all the same sort of number in the same range, just having different names for different people's opinions and moods helped me. I guess it was just kind of a writing aid to keep everybody's different personalities and moods in mind. Like I just used the different variable names to help with that writing, and just think about how a different character would respond to different situations.
On a related note, did you use different algorithms to model the different characters, or just the same algorithms with different variables?
Yeah, like for the most part, a lot of the different choices and outcomes, I mostly scripted all of those outcomes more or less ad hoc. Like I didn't use any real systematic approach. The only thing that I did was I defined a bunch of constants at the top of the like definition file, the startup code, where it defines like the various amounts of that the numbers are increased or decreased by for various outcomes. And at the top of every chapter, I set like temporary values for the difficulty of various tasks, like target numbers that you have to hit, either integers for skills or fair math, which is basically choice script's form of bounded numbers for the things like moods and opinions, where it can vary up or down a lot over the course of play.
So opinions are tracked with integers or floating point rather than with text variables?
Yeah, like the opinions are the same sort of bounded number as the moods are. They're just how much you, yeah, it's like how much the character likes the player or is impressed by them, or whatever that character cares about in other people.
So similar to a p-value in the system.
Yeah, that was kind of my inspiration in doing that, basically, except that it's not global, generic for everybody. It's idiosyncratic to each character. But yeah, like I like setting the constants for all of those adjustment values and the target values, because that helps you keep things, it helps you keep things constant and adjust the difficulty. Like if you need to rebalance something later on, it's easy to just change a few variables at the top of the file, rather than needing to search through every single line in every choice and make sure that you've made the change.
How much do the opinions and moods of the characters change the story, and how much in the ways that you change the story do you focus more on the opinions that the characters have of you, or on skill checks?
I guess it depends on what is going on. I guess like if it's you're trying to use a demon to influence them or something, it would just be a skill check. Or if you're working on adding some, I don't know, like trying to build up your military or something, it would be based on your military stats. But if it's just like a really low level, you're just talking to somebody and um, trying to just convince somebody or change their mind or something, and the choices are just at a really low level in the dialogue, then that would be usually based purely on the opinions and the moods. And the moods are reset every chapter, but the opinions persist over the course of the whole story.
With the skill checks, because it's all text, how are you like informing the player of what their skills are or what they're good at? Like
Yeah,
and
you can.
telegraphing as well. Like how are you like telegraphing, like if you make this choice, it's likely this thing will happen?
Yeah, for that, you can open up your stats screen at any time, and
Okay, so it's a stat screen. They have
yeah,
a UI to access it.
yep, yeah. Yeah, I think like Naz says that she's trying to get in, Chris.
Oh, darn it. I never didn't see that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think she just came on a few minutes ago.
I kept hearing the beeping and looking around, and
Yeah,
I'm truly senile. Hi, Naz.
Hello, sorry for being late.
That's okay. I was late, much later. So,
yeah, so like one thing that I did on this was I made it optional early on in the story whether to display the secondary skills, just because like I kind of felt like that was sort of like a behind the scenes look at things, but some people really wanted to be able to track some of those things, I guess, like the level of their army, I guess, and how well equipped they are, or certain things about like how much you've researched in terms of demon magic. And so I made that an option that people could turn on or leave it hidden in the stat screen if they preferred.
And that was feedback from like because you beta tested, right?
Yeah, that was feedback from beta testers early on.
How much did you change due to beta testing?
I didn't change or add too much. Sometimes it was just like clarifying or adding a bit of description of some scene to help explain what was happening. But mostly it was just a lot of bug fixing. Lots and lots of issues to fix, like especially in the later chapters when there was a whole lot of mutable outcomes and events that didn't always trigger, but it just happened based on past events.
At the end, does the player see all the paths not taken? Like I'm thinking that French game, Detroit Become Human, like it's really driven forward by looking at this at the story graph, really, and wanting to unlock all the story on subsequent playthroughs. Is there like a stick like that, or I guess that's a carrot?
Yeah, like there's not any story graph that I ever made. Like while I was designing some of the chapters, I sometimes made some like diagrams, like flow charts of some of the high level design of the chapters, but then once I got into like chapters 4 and 5, I couldn't use that so much. But that, like, as far as like choice script goes, it's kind of hard to set that up anyway, just because everything is choices and go-to statements and labels.
Okay.
But yeah, what it does have though is the game has achievements, and you can look at the list of achievements at any time, and that kind of gives you an idea of all of the various possible things that you can do and see which ones you haven't done, and maybe gives you an idea of what you might want to try in another playthrough.
Okay, so there's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
With that would be Steam achievements, right?
Yeah, yeah, and they're also in iOS and Android.
Okay, cool.
No, so I guess I didn't show the game. I guess I could show it some if you want.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. Let me see.
When I tested it for you, I got the impression that some choices may end up with more content being presented to the player than other choices. Like some paths may have more content than other paths. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I guess it can sometimes happen like that. Yeah, like I tried to balance it out somewhat, but yeah, I guess that some paths, like especially the military path, if you go that way, makes it just kind of ends up having more to do in that way. But yeah, some of the diagrams. Oh, I think Chris, you need to let me screen share to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was looking and I don't see how I can, how I can give you that power. I know I should be able to.
Is it something related to the green button at the bottom that says share screen? Like, does that give you more?
That allows me to share my screen.
Yeah, yeah. But that doesn't give you more options.
Wait a minute, let me look at
Mm.
this now. Security, React apps, no. George, I don't know, I do not know what OBS means.
It's like a recording and streaming platform, but you can like, I was asking Conley because
Oh,
because you can screen share through you can like override your webcam and basically screen share through a webcam using that. I didn't know if you had that or.
Yeah, no, I don't. I've never used that.
no. I do not see how, wait. No, I don't see how I can assign you that. Nope. I wonder if I can, wait, here might be something. Wait, I found, God, what a stupid user interface. Okay, I'm gonna make you the host for this.
Okay.
Let's see what that does. Okay, you're the host now.
Okay. So. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I guess like this. This is one of the,
Hey, very good.
yeah, this is one of the choices from a later chapter.
What does CI and MI mean?
Yeah, I feel like that's just a go to jump. Basically, it's just a label to jump to, so it keeps the diagram simpler by like reducing the number of arrows that are going all over the place.
Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't remember where I have all of the other ones, but let me, I guess I can bring up the playable thing. Yeah, this is the first chapter. Yeah, I guess one thing was that they were, I guess choice of games was kind of, they thought that my game would do well because they were willing to pay for a bunch more art of portraits of the characters in the game. Oh. I don't know how you want to do this. I guess, does anybody want to like pick choices here or something?
Hmm.
Four.
Which one? Okay. And noble.
Three.
Hmm.
OMG, this is deep.
Yeah.
Let's be Vietnamese.
Okay.
Why don't you just pick anything, Chris?
Okay. Yes. So show off the demons here. Open. Warriors.
And this is changing stats as you're picking them.
Yeah, yeah, I can see these are the stats, and this last demon choice gave you a bunch of malediction and ensorcelment, which is basically how well the demon is able to use their abilities to influence things. And it's also started to affect your personality here. Yes, and these change throughout the game based on your choices.
Do the characters have like access to that? Like they look at you and they just know you're pro monarchy, or could you lie to a character and like give them these Republican views
Yeah, like in
and trick them?
cases, right, in cases where that matters, you can either actually believe that thing that you say, or you can just be really good at negotiation and just trick them. So in cases like that, you can, either one works. And this will be famous family. And yeah, here I'll use my demon to make me a better fighter. And yeah, basically because the demon was good at using abilities, that it works in this case, and you basically humiliate Marcel because of that. And we will agree to a duel with him. And yeah, it gives him achievement. Oh, yeah, and this was what I was saying, that it gives an option to show details about the secondary things. Yeah, so that's this one down here at the bottom.
So the standing is the character's opinion of you?
No, that is actually how they are perceived by society in general. Yeah, I guess like if it gets low enough, then they pretty much are disgraced and can't do anything.
Right, 'cause he's your rival, correct?
Yep.
So
That's right.
So it's like a social health bar.
Yeah, kind of.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I guess that's the basic idea of the
Yeah.
story. Like that was the main character building chapter. Like all your choices result in these stats, and if you picked different options in that chapter, you would end up with different stats. And the personality and ideology is set somewhat in that chapter, but it's more set as you play it. Like at least one start at 50, well, all of these start at 50-50, and then they adjust one way or the other depending on your choices.
Okay.
So, did you keep notes like on the different characters? How did you design those characters and figure out how to write them?
Yeah. Like for when I originally pitched the story idea, the choice of games, they want you to make a design document which has like the basic outline of all the stats and the chapters and what happens in them and the main characters. And for each chapter, generally, I came up with a series of questions to ask about them and ways to define their personality. And I think I might be able to find some of them in here. Yeah. Yeah, like this.
How many hours did this take you? A few thousand? A few
Yeah,
10,000?
probably something in the thousands. I don't know exactly, but basically, yeah, I mean, I did this mostly in my free time over the last 3 years. Yeah, like these are the moods and opinions for this character and some of the possible outcomes for the chapter for them.
About how many main characters do you have?
The ones with portraits, there's about a dozen plus the 3 big demons, and there's a few others that don't have portraits. So maybe something like 20 or so characters that are important enough to have like at least one mood and opinion implemented for them.
Why choice of games? What did that give you that something like Twine didn't?
Yeah. Well, nice. I mean, one thing that's nice is they pay you. They give an advance.
Okay, that is nice.
They give an advance on royalties, and also they do marketing, and they have a big established user base, people that follow all their releases and play them. And so it's just, yeah, it's just good to work with them from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, some of their forum posts have like 100K views. Okay, this is making
Yep.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, like just because of my work in progress there that I had in the choice of games forum, when the link to actually put this game on your wish list was posted last year, like by October or so, it already had 1,000 people had it on their wish list
Very good.
on Steam, just on Steam.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how this is doing yet. I think the sales numbers for last month will come in at the end of this month. It's generally offset by about a month.
Are you gonna make another one after this?
Um,
Or are you
yeah.
totally burned out? This is it.
Yeah, no, actually, I've already pitched choice of games, and they picked a new one that they're interested in. So like this one is going to be kind of a cyberpunk noir sort of story.
Very good. Very good. And the design is impressive. You put a lot of nice things into that.
Thank you.
Well, are we, anybody else have any other comments here?
I haven't played it yet. I mean, that's what I gotta do before I have more questions, I feel like.
Yeah, you can play up to the basically the very beginning of chapter 3 as a free demo, and then if you want to go beyond that, you have to pay. But I think like chapter 2 in particular is a pretty good representation of what the game is about and how it plays. And you can go through it a bunch of different ways and have a lot of different outcomes on chapter 2 alone.
How many final outcomes are there?
There's, well, like it's a bunch of combinations, like of all of the possible final goals, there's multiple outcomes. So it's you multiply all the combinations, it's probably somewhere in the high hundreds or thousands of possible configurations.
Okay.
Can I
What's
also
the feedback been so far?
Yeah, I guess there's been some bug reports. Yeah, I guess like in terms of people like leaving comments on Steam or on the phone app stores. I'm gonna, I guess some people say that it's not like a really deep story, I guess, just because my approach to the design was a lot more in providing a broad set of options and just accounting for all of the player choices. And so it's not a really like tightly written narrative, like closer to more like a novel. I guess it's more of a freewheeling thing. Like one thing that Steam reviews said was that it's more like a game than a story.
Hmm.
is it okay to offer something of a spoiler on one of the endings?
Yeah, I guess you can.
Yeah, Chris Crawford asked about different endings. So the ending that I got when playtesting it, it lets you take part in a constitutional convention because it takes place in the French Revolution, and so you can have a seat on the constitutional convention and try to decide what kind of society and what kind of government the society is going to have going forward. And there's a lot of different options in terms of like what economic system and what class system and this and that and what the foreign policy will be. And so that creates a lot of different combinations of ending that you can have. And I got the impression that you have to survive in order to get that far. But based on that, it came across as there would definitely be quite a few different endings. And I do like the leeway that the game gives you in terms of player expression. It gives you a lot of different ways that your character can go. I was curious if anything in particular inspired the ending, because I never encountered a work of interactive fiction that had that kind of ending where it let you create a new constitution for the society, and I was a bit impressed by it. I was curious if anything in particular inspired that.
Not specifically. Like that was actually one thing that I wanted to do. I guess, and I knew I wanted to do that fairly early on, which would mean in order to account for how you would need to keep a bunch of different stakeholders happy, you would need to start from a starting point of basically the sorts of political and societal outcomes that they wanted to see implemented. And you couldn't stray too far from what they want, or otherwise they would quit or kick you out. basically. So I knew I would need to track a whole bunch of variables of all of those things and define them for each of those factions, I guess, like the military or monarchists or the peasants or the sans-culottes in Paris. And then I would need to basically combine them together in certain ways. If you were working with like two different groups, you would need to, it would come up with kind of, sometimes it would be like an average between the two views, or if they didn't particularly care about some of those issues, it would just go with the other factions' views. And then I used those starting values to determine what the range of possible outcomes that the player could choose to select from. But in terms of inspiration, I don't know, I guess I was thinking of something sort of like the Paradox games, I guess like Europa Universalis, or some of those other games where you are like redrawing borders of things, but also setting social policies and things. I've never actually played any of their games, but it's just something I've been interested in and following.
Okay, well, we're well over time. We should probably close it up now. So, thank you, Chris. It was very interesting. Curious. I hope it does well. It
Yeah,
seems to deserve it.
me too.
But more interesting will actually be the overall response of the community. That is, if we can characterize. In fact, perhaps next month you'll have. Are you just beginning to get feedback now?
Yeah, like there were just a few reviews posted when I looked like last week on the various different stores.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, if you could give us an update on the overall, summary of the various reviews, it would be interesting next month. So.
okay.
Okay, let's see. Can I? I'm going to reclaim the host thing. I am the host now. Power. Okay, I will see you guys next month.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.